CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, we're here. We're at SMRP 2025. It's SMRP number 33. 33 years of this thing. We are doing Friends of Nano, and Nano refers to Nano Precise. They're right here next to me, and one of our sponsors of the event is Brightly Software, and this man right here is Corey Dickens. He's a friend. He's a real deal pro, and we're going to chop it up some about this conference, this society, and a couple of other random things because we don't need scripts. We just go real and raw. Corey, welcome back to CMMS Radio. This time it's on Friends of Nano.
I'm happy to be a friend of somebody, and I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, now, a little something that we did ahead of coming to conference, we put some little Easter eggs in a few different episodes, and I was just asking you before we hit record, did anybody come up to the Brightly booth to see you and show you a picture of a red rooster or a rooster? I did the red rooster. A rooster to get their Brightly cap, because I got mine.
You got yours. I think someone else did, but they left it at home. Right, they left their picture of a rooster. They went the full 9. Instead of just bringing it up on their phone and Googling it and showing me, they tried to print it out and be funny. And they left it at home. So, you know what? A few hats got passed out. Luckily, I had enough to go around. I got one sitting on the shelf behind you. But yeah, a few people. We threw that little Easter egg in, and a few people bit.
Yeah. No, it's fun stuff. And for me, this is my first SMRP, and it's bigger, everybody's telling me, probably because, Orlando had to be canceled due to that inclement weather. You were over there in the booth. I was over there while you were setting up, and that was, before the actual exhibit hall opened. That was on workshop day. By the way, quick shout out to Reliability X, George Williams, and the entire team. They brought my recording rig so that we can do this cool stuff at a conference like this. Literally drove it down from Pennsylvania. I mean, how solid is that? And all the other sponsors, not just Brightly, but everybody listed here on this nice backdrop that Ashley and her team put together. Shout out to Kevin Clark. What is your favorite thing, Corey, about SMRP? Because this is not your first one. This is kind of you're part of the society. You deal with, I shouldn't say deal with, it's a bad choice of word. You're part of the Carolinas chapter. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about this conference, why you love it, and what people should expect from it. Some of that good stuff.
I talked about it, leading up to the show, to being here. We talked about the contingency. I feel, as I go to quite a few conferences, obviously this one is the one focused as a society of maintenance and reliability professionals for maintenance and reliability professionals. Now, there's always going to be the creep in these solution providers or service providers. There's just people who want to come attend that are not M&R folks, and that's fine. We'll have you. We'll also go get a drink with you, and if you got questions, we'll answer your questions, right? This is the group of people where, while we don't need signs up that say, a no-sell zone here or there, at the end of the day, this is the place where people want to help each other, and it's a people that have been there and done the work. This is the biggest contingency of people I can find that are like me and think like me in one place. I haven't found it anywhere else yet, and I've made my friends, and this is like an annual reason to get together with my friends in a different city until we come back to Raleigh next year, and then I'm in my background.
Yeah, we heard about that, and I was asking somebody about that whole process, and apparently they do advanced planning 3 years ahead of time, so they tend to know but have to keep it close to the vest. But it's cool that it's going to be out in Raleigh. I haven't been to Raleigh, North Carolina since I was at Brightly Illuminate 2024, which was outstanding. You were a huge part of that. You were on my panel there, and we'll see if this time I can get a panel discussion going, because it'll be different than all the other panels, because I don't know jack shit, and I can ask all kinds of random questions of you real deal pros. Now, I also noticed something about Brightly Software, that you guys have an updated logo, and that's pretty cool. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about this idea of being in what I like to call the nanosphere, being a friend of Nano, in that you get these opportunities to work with them and their potential and their clients, and potentially have them maybe even help your clients. Give me a little kind of flavoring and coloring around what that's like and why that's important for people, not just because of the software.
You talk about it a lot. It's people, process, and technology, right? A lot of people try and flip that and do technology first, thinking it will fix the process. Therefore, it will lead to good outcomes in people. You mentioned Reliability X. Joe is a great friend of both of us. So at the end of the day, it's putting the cart in front of the horse, focusing on I say it all the time, right? You lead people, you manage things, i.e. processes, and you measure results. So it flows very nicely there to where solutions help measure things, right? It's not the one doing the work. It's never going to do the work. And it's definitely not leading your people. It's not developing skills. So working with other people that get it, that think similar, and providing those solutions every step of the way to help a client truly move from reactive to proactive is the goal. And that doesn't mean every step of the way it's Brightly. That doesn't mean every step of the way it's a condition monitoring platform. It's how these things interweave and compound based on the client and what they need for their application.
Yeah. So a common theme, and I've asked everybody about it at this conference because, it's maintenance and reliability professionals. So I get two sides of an important concept that we all like to talk about. I'm not a reliability professional, but I've been asking, and I'm going to ask you with this, what is so important? I mean, we're always talking about the basics, the fundamentals, people and process. You might be able to do process and people. You could flip those two maybe. But why are those basic elements, those fundamentals, really not going to change? And they seem to be the most important. In fact, you mentioned Joe Anderson, and he will be one of the loudest voices that will tell you that it's not even your metrics, it's the actual behaviors and the discipline behind those. And that gets right back to those basic elements of fundamental excellence, how we move, how is our culture set up within the org, is it all connected? Talk to me about that. Why is that not going to change? Why is that a repeating message, and why is it so damn important?
AI is a big buzzword in the industry still, 2-3 years later now. It can replace a lot of functions in a lot of different businesses. What it's not going to replace is the person maintaining equipment. It's not going to replace the people that have the expertise of how to repair the system, right? If you think AI is going to replace that person and allow anyone to put on a headset and go do something, I would ask, where's it getting its information? It's getting it from a manual, right? So then it's going to ask the question, all right, did you design that equipment to your specifications, to your requirements? Did you validate the acceptance of it, right? There's a whole process, asset management as a process that unfolds here that gives you the results that you have. So you talk about why is the people, the process, and the culture so important? It's because your culture is only as good as the behaviors that you allow. So if you don't reinforce the standards that you want upheld, you're therefore reinforcing the behaviors you don't want in your organization, and those compound, and then you measure those in these metrics, and these metrics become weaponized, and then you see these companies spiral to where they're focused on the weekly or the monthly OEE calculation, for example. When Joe says, well, first define what is a downtime event. Because if you can't define that, then again, what are we talking about? Where are your detractors? OEE can be a fantastic measurement. It can be a lagging indicator and a leading indicator if defined and used well. But again, it's a measurement, and it's a measurement of a practice in a business. So define the practice first and ensure the people understand the practice, and you reinforce it. We talk about ADKAR a lot, right? The ability, desire, knowledge. I may have messed that up. I'm on the fly here, but the last one's reinforcement. Be careful what you reinforce. You might just reinforce the bad habits you don't want to exist because you're scared to have a conversation.
That's a really good call out that I haven't even thought of in that exact way, because when I think about the R in ADKAR, I'm thinking about the things that are working and how we should kind of revisit those to kind of maintain them. And everything you're talking about, and I've talked to Joe about this, I've talked to a lot of our mutual what I like to call real deal pro friends. Not, there's a lot of people out here doing this stuff, and people that write their books and all that. But if you go and look at their work, it's a big nothing burger. And when I get down to it with you and with these other like people that are part of my circle that I can really trust, high integrity, those metrics are going to influence, you've said it a lot, Joe said it a lot, are going to influence how you behave, and they're going to take away from what you're really trying to do. But what I'm really getting to here is this idea of accountability, mutual accountability, where I want to be accountable because you are willing to be accountable. When you have that built into the culture and people aren't trying to avoid things or worry about how they appear, they're actually taking ownership and responsibility for what they do and how they contribute. I think that's a kind of a central thing that kind of permeates this whole process. If you're doing it right, if that's what right looks like, you're going to see lots and lots of accountability and people that are going to stand up for it and own it.
I think you have, that's where we come back to hiring and retaining the right people with the right intrinsic motivation, right? Or do they someone of a character where they will take ownership, they will take accountability, right? I'm a Navy guy, so I'm going to talk about extreme ownership a lot. I read the book and I was like, that's how I've thought about things for a long time. I just didn't have the word to explain it, right? Did it teach me more things? Absolutely. George broke my brain a few years ago when we were talking about this. So you're going to talk about people and process before technology. Think of the biggest sticking point for any maintenance and repair team in the industry today. It's inventory management and then therefore inventory control, right? You want to know if you're going to succeed with the CMMS implementation, start with your inventory management process, right? Go through an exercise of self-evaluation of can we sustain success? And how you do this is by implementing 5S, right? 5S, if you're not familiar, is sort, set, shine, standardize, and sustain, right? You're talking about it. It's very, I think of it the same as the R in ad card, right? It's just a slightly different methodology. It's a different process. But 5S to me, and what George broke my brain when he explained it, 5S is a measurement of discipline. Can we sustain this initiative? So before you go spend any money on a CMMS, try this first, implement 5S for your inventory management, and you'll find out, is it a process issue? Is it a people issue? And can we sustain success, right? It's a barometer of your ability and your discipline to sustain something. If you can do that and then you turn and you say, all right, now CMMS actually is my opportunity of improvement. I need to implement something. Again, add CAR for how you explain and build the team and build the charter. And then 5S is how you implement it. And then the R, the S, whatever, sustain success. Do you have the discipline to stay committed to the original purpose of why we're doing this initiative? Too many good idea fairies and too many like, oh, let's try this week, and then it fizzles out, right? That deteriorates trust. Like your maintenance tech, if you go to them right now, you go to a new organization, like me, when I was in textiles, the engineer had been there for 17 years. He had seen a lot of leadership come and go and try to implement new things, and it always kind of went back to normal, right? So every time he heard a good idea, he's like, yeah, have fun. And then he'll just sit back and watch, right? Because none of the organizations had the ability to sustain the success or the discipline to sustain through the valley of despair, XYZ. So that's the biggest thing. If you can show me you have the discipline to maintain some of these initiatives, like if we focus on that first, I think all the other stuff falls in place. And you and I have talked about this a long time. As a CMS buyer, and then now as someone that works on the CMMS side, I would rather work with someone, right, that has that discipline and comes in educated, knowing what they need, knowing what they don't need, understanding. That makes the conversation of which of the 400 CMMSs do I choose a lot cleaner than saying, show me what you got.
It sure the hell increases the likelihood of success, not only in choosing the right one, but regardless. Now, how are we going to use it? And are we actually going to use it? Because that's where it all falls apart. We have the discipline
to continue to use it.
That's right. And the willingness to figure that out and I'm going to use the word suffer, and I don't mean it negatively, but kind of go through the process of that new solution being brought in, because these kind of environments where that's already set are going to be more likely to say, hey, this is new. We got to kind of get used to it. We have to use it a little bit slower at first, and then we can get better and better at it. But really, this gets all the way back to the question of why we keep talking about people, process, culture, because these tools, as awesome as they really can be and as helpful as they really can be, they only do so much as far as helping you stay on schedule. They show you things, they give you clues, they give you data that you can pour through or isolate and make better decisions. But without people, frontline adoption, mid-level management adoption, and even all the way up to the top, if they're not looking at it and participating, that's another way people are going to turn out, because why should I do something if you don't really care and you're telling me to do it and you're not even participating? I want to switch gears.
Let me one note on that. That's again that par where awareness, desire, knowledge, and ability come in. And it's not just for the people who have to use the tool. It's the people looking at the reports that it generates that thought it was a good idea to implement this in the first place. Right? So like, make sure that's where a lot of the CMMSs fall apart. That's why people use the ERP maintenance modules that they do, because IT is also tired of these initiatives and these opportunities and spending this money, and it falters and no one uses it. And they're like, well, you're not going to use the tool anyways. We might as well just negotiate and get a price to use the maintenance module in my solution, and I don't have to worry about the integration. So again, prove to them you will use something and why this other thing is better through the awareness, the desire, the knowledge, and the ability.
Dude, this laughing guy is just driving me nuts, man. He keeps laughing. Shit. Sorry. Usually I'm focused, but man, that dude keeps laughing. Do you think, when it comes to SMRP, switching gears now?
Yep, switch gears.
And the overall approach, when we see how the workshops are set up on day one, and then there's like at the end of the week, there's more like workshops and testing and stuff like that. Do you feel like there's any way to improve the format, or are you pretty much like, I know what I'm going to get. I like the way this is set up right now. And then I'm going to hit you with one more question that I heard about at the conference.
All right. Well, let me take a stab at this. I like the way the format is. I kind of wish, a lot of people make the mistake of showing up on Monday morning thinking that the workshops are not an additional cost. The workshops are, I think I paid out of my pocket one year to do one of the workshops, the first SMRP I went to, the only one I went to where I was a attendee, not an exhibitor. I thought it was worth every penny. Shout out JD Solomon, right? How to communicate and get your boss's boss to understand. So I thought it was worth every dollar, right? And I met JD. He lives near me. We're good friends. We still talk, right? So I met a lifelong person, and that was one of the first hooks of many hooks into why I keep coming back to SMRP. I think the structure is pretty good. I think it breaks it up. I will say a lot of attendees probably have a hard time choosing what sessions to go to. I think you'll look at titles nowadays and you'll see all the titles are AI generated, because it's like a sentence and a semicolon and another sentence, right? And they're all the same. They all use the same kind of hyperbole and XYZ. I think the people presenting are hopefully putting their effort into the content, not in the title, so I understand. But just make it relatable. And I want to see more case studies. I want to see more hands-on experience. I want to learn more about failure. I think one of the first ones I ever went to, they talked openly about failure, right? And what challenges they face. And like, let's just work together to solve some of these problems, because our problems, while they differ to a degree, they're not different by kind. They're similar problems. They just differ based on what the composition or size of my business is, right? That's the difference. So I like the way it's set up. I think it's different than any other conference I go to. From the provider side, I don't know, man. I think it's just more, I just wish people were more willing to stop and just have a chat. I feel like they get in these modes where they think all these vendors, I don't know if it's because the other vendors are doing it or not. It just seems like they're being pitched as they walk by, right? So they become a little abrasive or callous to it. Whereas like, I just want to have a conversation. I want to learn about your business, right? I am truly amazed at who I talk to at times and the type of business that they work for, and the names don't always describe what they do. Like most of my career's been in the Navy. I was on a ship in the Middle East, and I used tubes of silicone for lubricating the cable reel in my system. Right? You know where that silicone tube was manufactured?
No idea.
In my hometown. I
Wow.
never knew it existed. Right? Small world defense logistics system. I was like, that's made in my hometown. So again, what kind of connection can we have? What can we learn about other businesses around us or similar businesses across the country, right? Other than our main competitors, like what can you learn? And the only way you do that is just talking to people.
Yeah, man, we're not just there to sell stuff. We're not just there to buy stuff. We're there to learn, connect, the networking. That's a really powerful thing. The conversations that happen when the expo hall closes and we're at the bar or wherever. I mean, last night I was having conversations that I just get to learn from. I get to talk to all these people,
Just
and
be a
sure,
fly on the
maybe they're
wall.
like, "Oh, I want to talk to Greg because it's CMMS Radio." And it's like, forget about that. Just talk to Greg because I need to learn. I don't
Talk to
know.
Greg, talk to Corey, or continue with your conversation, and I'm just going to be a fly on the wall, right? Like there's some conversations happening here that I'm not a contributor of, right? I have just as much to learn as anybody else. And there are other conversations where I can be a contributor or I can be, the person well in that conversation. So just have a conversation. Stop thinking you got to sell things or I'm talking to Brightly or I'm talking to CMMS Radio. Just talk to Greg, talk to Corey.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to wind us down on that right there because we're going to have a lot to talk about in the coming weeks after the conference. Corey Dickens, Brightly Software. First, I want to thank you for being on Friends of Nano presented by CMMS Radio with me. SMRP 2025, almost over. Next year, Raleigh, North Carolina, right there in your backyard. We get to do it again. We get to hang out. We get to learn a bunch of stuff. And thank you guys for also supporting this effort and this production and being friends with NanoPrecise.
Being
Corey
friends of
Dickens, thank you, brother.
Appreciate it, brother.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS from selection to implementation to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.